You know, Ole Miss can legitimately resurrect their season with a win over the Arkansas Razorbacks, and we tell you how.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's episode, we dive into the Ole Miss Rebels' search for their true identity 8 weeks into the season. Could this newfound mindset be the key to winning out and making a push for the college football playoff? It may have taken a while, but this shift could unlock the formula for playing winning football for the remainder of 2024. This, and we look at the Week 10 lines, and Chris Beard led the Hoops Rebs to a big win over the Illinois Fighting Illini in preseason. This is the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Really interesting stuff, and I am dead serious about this. I'm not just doing the whole thing of, hey, we need to establish hope and all that. But if Ole Miss beats Arkansas, they can completely resurrect their season. And what I mean by that is everything that you wanted to have at your fingertips going into that Georgia game, it would be available. This whole season up to this point has been about making that Georgia game into what that Georgia game could be. And Ole Miss thought they blew that opportunity after Kentucky. And I believe them when they think that. And fans get on Twitter and all of that talking about how horrible of a loss it is. And that's honestly, watching Kentucky over and over, that loss was unforgivable. Period. It's in ink. It's on the resume. All of that. It is a genuine, terrible loss. It would be like in a normal year losing to Vanderbilt. In other words, it's no bueno. But Ole Miss has an opportunity to have this Ole Miss-Georgia game mean everything. Again, the playoffs, the whole 9 yards, you can still make that run that you want to make. And I'll tell you how you want to make it in just a second. But you can still do that with a win over the Arkansas Razorbacks. And believe me, Arkansas is going to present some challenges for Ole Miss. And Ole Miss's defense is going to have to be extremely stout because Taylor Green reminds me a lot of Matt Jones. And Matt Jones, just saying that name, there's going to be Ole Miss fans that really freak out hearing it. But Taylor Green reminds me a lot of Matt Jones. And the play calling has been very good. Arkansas has been a good team, and they kind of half-heartedly put up 58 points against Mississippi State on the weekend. But if you go through and win that game in a place that's been difficult traditionally to win, Ole Miss is 4-6 in their last 6 games against Arkansas, but both of the losses were in Fayetteville. The lone win on the road against Arkansas is in Little Rock. Ole Miss can beat Arkansas in Little Rock. They can beat Arkansas in Oxford. For whatever reason, they struggle in Fayetteville. I've seen Arkansas score a touchdown on an Ole Miss kickoff return in a game in Fayetteville. Weird things happen in that stadium. The good news is this Ole Miss-Arkansas game is going to be at 11 a.m. I would not have felt good about it as a night game, especially with how good Arkansas is. 11 a.m., I'm happy with. 70% chance of rain. Okay, I can deal with that as well. I can handle the rain. I think that between Bobby Petrino and Lane Kiffin, they'll still be able to scheme up some offense, but it will help out Ole Miss's defense as well. So I'm okay with that. But win this game and you can resurrect your season and make that game in the playoffs and everything start coming into focus again after that Kentucky disaster. I'm not even worried about losing to LSU in overtime. That's fine. That was a play. That happens. That Kentucky game was nearly unforgivable. But Ole Miss has a chance. I think they're 24% to make the college football playoff as it sits right now. And if Ole Miss wins out, it's like 72 to 77%, somewhere around there. So Ole Miss is not dead and buried. It's alive and to make the college football playoff, but they need to take care of business. And it starts by beating the Arkansas Razorbacks. And if what we saw against the Oklahoma Sooners offensively happens again, Ole Miss is going to beat the Arkansas Razorbacks. And everybody's like, whoa. Ole Miss only scored 26 points in this game. Yeah, they did. But Ole Miss had a mindset shift in that game. They went slow. They let the play clock run down from time to time. They used all of their weapons. And they allowed this defense, which is currently number one in the entire country in scoring defense, to be number one in the entire country in scoring defense. They were allowing this defense that was number 7 in sacks to become number 2 in sacks. They were allowing this defense to be the leading defense in the country in tackles for loss by over 10. This defense is really good. Lane Kiffin knows that this defense is really good. And every bit of DNA that Lane Kiffin has is this fun style run outside the box, go for it on fourth downs, attack on offense, no matter what it does to your defense. And what we've seen in big games, in the biggest of the big games, is that philosophy gets you beat. People say Lane Kiffin can't win a big game. That you hear that all over on the internet. But the reality is that style of play doesn't win big games. Against Alabama, going for it on fourth down on the road when you just need the points, that is better than giving them the momentum, because those momentum swings can be everything. And I will tell you exactly what I mean. The first touchdown Oklahoma scored was because the defense did not play clean. The biggest rivalry in college sports right now is Ole Miss playing a clean versus playing a clean football game. If Ole Miss can play clean, they do not lose games. They will not lose games. Ole Miss has to play clean. But the penalties showed up for one drive, saved a couple of series, gained some third downs, helped them about 30 yards down the field. Oklahoma ended up scoring on a coverage bust. Ole Miss is prone to bust. I figured count for one bust per game and you'd be pretty good. Okay. They scored that touchdown. The second touchdown was completely because of that momentum switch. Whenever Oklahoma made the stop on fourth down for the sudden change, the offense was able to move down the field. The air was taken out of that stadium. The momentum was palpable, and they were able to go down and make it 14-10. In the second half, Ole Miss committed to the bit. And that is, they were going to punt on fourth down. They were going to kick field goals on fourth down. They were going to run the ball. They were going to play slow, and they were going to be efficient offensively. They ended up scoring 16 points in the second half. Oklahoma had no chance. Oklahoma's record for sacks allowed was by Ole Miss on Saturday with 10. We will talk about Suntarine Perkins in the second segment. We will talk about that defense in the second segment as well. But if Ole Miss goes up with this offense that we saw in the second half, Ole Miss is not losing another game this year, period. They're not. And they're going to score points, surprisingly. If you live and die by this defense, you are going to live an awful lot. And the saying is, when you go on the road, pack your defense, pack your run game. Pack your defense, pack your run game. Now, the second part we need to think about and we need to work about. We'll talk about that in the second segment as well. But the defense part you can pack. And realize this is going to be a very difficult job for Oklahoma or Arkansas or anybody to score points against this defense. Ole Miss has given up exactly one rushing TD through 8 games this season. And that was on a play that fumbled in the end zone that was recovered. That was the rushing touchdown that Ole Miss has allowed. They're very good in the red zone. They're very good on third down. If they can avoid costly penalties, they are going to eventually get off the field. They're going to eventually make it to where the other team has trouble. Now, we will worry about the Georgia game when the Georgia game gets here, okay? Right now, worrying about the Arkansas game is more important because that's a road game. Ole Miss, I think, is a 6.5-point favorite in Fayetteville. The over-under has gone down to like 55 points. This is a game where they're expecting points, but I'm expecting the under to hit. I'm expecting this to be a slow-paced game. I'm expecting Lane Kiffin to see what he did against Oklahoma, get Trey Harris back, incorporate him into all of that stuff to make the offense more difficult to deal with than it already was. I absolutely loved the fact that this offense ran 12 personnel Saturday. It allowed them to control so much, and especially drive the ball slowly down the field, kind of matriculate the ball down the field. And this offense was so much better for it. Again, they didn't fully commit to the bit in the first half. And they made a mistake, and Oklahoma was able to take advantage. First half of that game should have been 13-7. You add into the 16-0 in the second half, Ole Miss should have won that game somewhere in the ballpark of 30-7 if they would have just committed to the bit. And wouldn't everybody feel different about a 30-7 game? Wouldn't everybody feel completely different about that? This is going to be a different thing. This joyless murder ball scenario that Ole Miss has to win games this year, it is going to be interesting to see what happens. Anyway, Ole Miss was able to dominate the line of scrimmage against Oklahoma. Suntarine Perkins ended up with an SEC Player of the Week level performance. Will he get it? We will talk about that in just a second. You know, get ready to tackle some NFL action with America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can get $5 off and or can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Ole Miss is currently 6.5-point favorites over the Arkansas Razorbacks, but we all know how weird this series can be. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view latest play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. A new partner to Locked On Ole Miss Podcast is College Corner. It's your one-stop shop for all things Ole Miss. You know, game day at Arkansas is just around the corner, and this week the fans are rocking Navy in Arkansas. So head on over to College Corner and pick up your perfect game day gear. Whether you're gearing up for football, basketball, or baseball, College Corner has you covered. And they have the Realtree Galaxy pattern that everybody saw this weekend, Ole Miss breaking out against Oklahoma. Really cool. I have the hoodie myself. They're located off of Sisk Avenue, right across from the new Chick-fil-A. Getting to the store is a breeze, and they have plenty of parking. And for those of you out of state, no worries. Visit collegecornerstore.com, where they turn around orders lightning fast. I know. Trust me, this just isn't a pitch. College Corner is where I get all of my Rebel gear. So visit collegecornerstore.com or stop by College Corner today in Oxford, Ridgeland, or Flowood. So we talked about what the offense did, and it was an absolutely perfect game plan. What we learned over the weekend is Ole Miss in the game started to find their identity offensively. And as a team as a whole, it took 8 games, but they're finally starting to get there. And Jaxson Dart executed the game plan nearly perfectly to win that game of football against the Oklahoma Sooners, especially in the second half. He threw for 311 yards. I think he needs to average 270 yards a game to break Eli's passing record during the regular season. That's what needs to happen for Jaxson Dart. And against Arkansas, Jaxson Dart should become the all-time total offense leader because he's only like 250 yards behind Bo Wallace for that total offense record against Arkansas. So expect Jaxson Dart to have that big game and do what he needs to do. And Suntarine Perkins is tied for the SEC lead in sacks after Saturday with Kyle Kennard. Suntarine Perkins has become the monster that we all thought he could be. Now, when you look at this box score, okay, everybody's going to look at this box score and kind of freak out a little bit. It's like, hey, what do you mean what you've been talking about before? Why are you showing me this? The numbers do not show what you're saying. And you're absolutely correct. That is why it is important for Ole Miss to completely commit to the bit. They go up 24 first downs, some of them on penalty, but you know, Joe John Finley in the first quarter, especially first and second quarter, did a decent job of keeping the Ole Miss off balance, the Ole Miss defense off balance, and was able to steal some first downs. In the second half, I think they had 85 or 86 yards or something like that. They had 329 yards of total offense and 2 turnovers caused by the picture shown that was Jared Ivey. But the main thing that everybody needs to look at in this situation is Suntarine Perkins. He had 11 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He has 8.5 sacks on the year, which means that if he has another game like he just had, he's going to break Sam Williams' record, I think, of sacks in a season. Suntarine Perkins has become the monster that Ole Miss fans have been waiting on this player to become. He is a dominant defensive player. He is Tony Connor playing closer to the line level of a player. He is the reason you need to protect this defense. Him and Princely and Monmielen and J.J. Pegues, who's having a fantastic year. Walter Nolan, who went off the field in the first half, but it sounds like they're not totally worried about what's going on there. So we'll see. I think the rumor would have trickled out if something was really wrong with Walter Nolan, but he got knocked. He took a knock in that game, and he did not come back in. But the defensive line in the second half, honestly, got really good, whether it was Jam Brown or Akella Stone, who got a sack in the game, or those players confusing the blocking scheme of the Oklahoma Sooners. This defense was able to really hunt. Now, looking at their numbers this year, they are currently number 2 in the country in sacks with 34. And I think that's one behind maybe Boise State. I think they might be the number 1. They are number 1 in tackles for loss. Number 2 is Duke, and they have like 70. They're over 10 above the number 2 player in the entire country, and they are number 1 right now in scoring at 11 points per game. This defense is the epitome of the land shark defense. And if you protect them and make sure they are strong, you'll get a situation like the end of the game to where Oklahoma could not drop back and throw the ball downfield. There was a sack 5 out of the last 7 plays or something like that. Jackson Arnold ended up getting a lion's share of the yardage. Earlier, he ended up running for 100 yards gross, but because of sacks, he ended up with like 35 or 36 yards. Really interesting stuff. And looking at Jaxson Dart, just bringing up his stats real quick. He is on pace. He's over 9,000 yards. He is probably a game and a half away. Midway through the Florida game or midway through the Georgia game, he should pass Bo Wallace into second all-time in passing yards by himself. And at that point, he should be sitting alone in total offense as well. Really interesting stuff. I mean, I'm completely fired up about what this Ole Miss team could be at the end of the year. I love defensive football. Saturday was so great to see the second half of that game. When Ole Miss finally quit helping Oklahoma, all of a sudden Oklahoma could do nothing. This was a team when Oklahoma, with 70% 4- and 5-star players, not be able to handle what Ole Miss has on the offensive line. This isn't a situation of Oklahoma not being ready or anything for the SEC either. So get that out of your head as well. They kind of had a perfect storm of negative with losing their offensive line and wide receiver unit this season. It just happens. It's bad luck. It's kind of really bad to see. But Ole Miss was able to pick up that win and do what they have to do to get that win as well. All right, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. When we come back, we will look at the SEC Week 10 betting lines, and we'll talk about Chris Beard getting a big win over Illinois in a preseason game against the Illinois Fighting Illini. Stick around. You know, Game Time is the place to get your Ole Miss tickets. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets. You know, Vaught Hemingway doesn't have a bad seat. The Pavilion doesn't have a bad seat. But Game Time makes it to where you can see exactly what the view would be from that seat before you buy the ticket. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I might even be able to help you out with tickets as well. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms again, and create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And keep your eye on Game Time, because if Ole Miss beats Arkansas, that Georgia game, Game Time could be your friend then. So, week 10 in the SEC. This is so interesting what's going on around the league right now. You legitimately have a chance to where you could have everybody with 2 losses at the end of the year. You could have 6 2-loss teams at the end of the year. Now, Texas A&M is in really good shape, but they are a 2-loss team potentially as well, because they still have a game against Texas. Alabama and LSU both have 2 losses, and they have a de facto playoff game the same way that Ole Miss is going to have against Georgia. Missouri, they have 2 losses, but they're essentially out because they were without their quarterback. Vanderbilt is playing magnificently right now. They have to go down to Tiger Stadium. They could get a win as well down there with the way that they've been playing. Listen, this football season in the SEC is just bizarre. It's just weird. And anybody that claims anything else is just wrong, they're lying to you, or they have pent-up narratives that they're trying to get across. When you look at the lines this weekend, Ole Miss is favored by 6.5 points over Arkansas. Listen, Ole Miss has not won in Fayetteville in a while. They've won 2 times in Fayetteville this century, and the century's almost a quarter up. So it's hard to play in Fayetteville. Ole Miss is being a 6.5 point favorite. They have the talent to do it. They have the better football team. Arkansas's defense is pretty good, and Taylor Green, he reminds me of Matt Jones. And I know saying that name is going to freak some people out, but he reminds me of Matt Jones. So if Ole Miss can keep them under wraps, deny first downs, all of that stuff, and get the offense going just a little bit, play standard football on the road of run the ball and defense, they will be all right. Ole Miss running the ball, they need to find somebody that can handle it. Right now, Henry Parrish is not doing it for whatever reason. Ulysses Bentley only had 5 carries against the Oklahoma Sooners. Where's Rashad Amos? Where is Dominic Thomas? Where are all these players that were brought in through the transfer portal? I think you need to run the football, and somebody 230 pounds, that would make sense to have them doing that. That is just my opinion on that. Vanderbilt is at Auburn. Auburn's favored by 5.5 points. Auburn was able to beat Kentucky, which, like I said, that Kentucky game is an unforgivable albatross on Ole Miss's season. And at this point, Lane's going to have to wear that one. Maine is at Oklahoma. It's a no-line game. It's a get-right game for Oklahoma. Florida's playing Georgia in Jacksonville. Georgia's favored by 17.5 points. That's a weird game. But I take a Georgia defense against a true freshman quarterback every single time. So we'll see what happens. Mississippi State has UMass. Mississippi State is favored by 20 points. Texas A&M is favored by 3.5 at South Carolina. That's the nighttime ABC game. Williams-Brice can be difficult to play in night games and things like that. If they are really up, be wary of what can possibly happen, especially with the defensive ends that they have. They have a chance to wreak havoc, even though Kyle Kennard and Suntarine Perkins, they're tied for sacks, as we talked about it. And Kentucky is at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 15.5 point favorite as well. Again, Ole Miss 6.5 point favorite at Arkansas. That over-under, since I've done that graph, it has gone down to 55.5 points instead of 57.5. So remember that as well. They're keeping that over-under down. That's because of the chance of rain and the Ole Miss defense, essentially, as well. All right, turning the page, the last part of this show. Sunday was a charity exhibition against the Illinois Fighting Illini for Chris Beard and the Ole Miss men's hoops team. It was televised live on the SEC network. And what you saw was a pretty good performance by the Ole Miss men's basketball team. Sean Padula looked really good. Dre Davis looked really good. You saw Matthew Morrell kind of getting rested. Malik Dia led everybody in scoring on Ole Miss's team. Let's see. What did it look like? This is what the box score was in that game. Ole Miss was a 91-74 winner over Illinois. Ole Miss shot nearly 50% in the game, 48.6%. Illinois at 43.5%. Ole Miss was over 50% from 3. Illinois was 10 for 33 in this game. They had a problem with turnovers. They had 22 in the game. Ole Miss had 9. The point guard really struggled. They had a true freshman playing for Illinois. Illinois did rebound the ball with 44 rebounds. Ole Miss had 32. Ole Miss had 18 fouls to 16 for the Fighting Illini. The leading scorer for Ole Miss, they haven't updated him in Ole Miss gear, but it was Malik Dia. He had 18 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, shot the ball really well from three land. Him and Dre Davis and those guys, they're going to be a problem this year for teams trying to deal with Ole Miss. They're just going to be a problem. They played defense at a really high level. I actually like the, was it Eduardo Kafka or whatever his name was? The freshman from Brazil that came in. His energy that he came in the end was, I don't want to say it, but it was Marshall Henderson-esque as far as him just going. He was trying to make the most of every second that he was on the court, and Ole Miss fans are going to love him for that. Jamin Brakefield played pretty well. Michael Browns-Jones, I could get that wrong. I apologize if I do. I haven't got the names completely memorized at this point, but Ole Miss's offense looked a lot better shooting the ball, and their defense looked – there wasn't the gaping hole that Ole Miss had in defense a year ago. Last year, Ole Miss would switch off on defense, switch off, and eventually you would end on a really small guy against Jamarian Sharp or Musa Cisse. Every single time it would end up in that situation, and they would take him to the hole and they would score a basket, and that would almost become simple at times. This year, I didn't see that. I saw an Ole Miss team that was really scrappy defensively, that shot the ball really well, that kind of looked like they're going to have an identity this year as opposed to years past. I really like what on the surface Chris Beard has built with this team. I like the Dre Davis. I like the Sean Padula, and Juju Murray was out there as well. All the returning players kind of get set aside a little bit, and you kind of pay attention to the newcomers like Sean Padula and those guys, Malik Dia, and they're going to be really good players, I think. Now, Ole Miss has trouble rebounding the post because there's a size deficiency. You have a, positionless basketball team that has been built. In doing that, you don't have everybody that's 6'4" to 6'9". You have people that are 5'11" to 6'7" or 6'8" or 6'9". And because of that, it can be problematic, and it could be difficult to basically rebound the ball and defend the goal in the post. We'll have to pay attention. We're going to talk to Tim Thomas on Wednesday about what he noticed. We're going to get a preview about the Long Island game, and we're going to start to look at this. Ole Miss basketball team is nationally ranked. They deserve to be talked about. So we are going to talk about those games, and we're going to talk about those teams, and we're going to potentially do live streams. I haven't thought. It might just be SEC teams that we do just like 30-minute live stream after the game. We'll have to see exactly how it goes. But I'm pretty excited about what this season can be. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the #1 Ole Miss podcast. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC Podcast. Host Chris Gordy holds no punches, covering the best conference in college football. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And also exciting news, you can now become a Locked On Ole Miss Insider. It's the best and easiest way to stay updated on all things Ole Miss sports. It's our texting program, and it sends you notifications on everything relevant without the hassle of message boards filled with trolls. Enjoy a 14-day free trial and experience the future of college sports coverage. We're adding new perks as we go, so do not miss out. The link is down in the description. For those of you watching on YouTube, we will send you to Locked On College Sports right now. Hotty toddy, everyone.